Welcome to another edition of Dave Smith Unleashed. And first of all, thanks to all the subscribers. We are well over 2,000 now, and hard to believe. We're almost 3 months in now, over 2,000 subscribers. So thanks to everybody for listening. Thanks to everybody for subscribing. And thanks to all the support we've been getting. And of course, we'll continue to bring you great content. And of course, this is Dave Smith we're talking about. You'll be getting content here that you won't hear anywhere else. That's why we call it Unleashed. That's why I'm the most opinionated sports talk show host in the world. And, of course, all brought to you by MTS Transportation, 800-640-6873 for reliable, on-time delivery, compliance you can count on, round-the-clock support, superior communication, experienced logistics partners, and mention the Dave Smith Unleashed podcast and get 20% off on your next shipment. So for all your trucking, freight, and shipping needs, make sure you call MTS Transportation at 800-640-6873. And speaking of MTS, thanks to them, we have a great giveaway going on here. 4 tickets, July 2nd to the Dodgers-White Sox game. And, you know, these aren't the nosebleed seats. No, this is MTS Transportation we're talking about. 4 seats, 3 rows from the field, box seats, along with free parking and access to the stadium club. So 4 tickets to the game, stadium parking, access to the stadium club, and the Dodgers and the White Sox on July 2nd. You get to see Shohei Ohtani. You get to see Freddie Freeman. You get to see the reigning and defending World Series champion Los Angeles Dodgers. But there's a catch. In order to win, you have to be a subscriber to Dave Smith Unleashed. You have to like the content on YouTube. And, of course, comment underneath the YouTube in the comment section. So make sure you subscribe, give it a like, and then comment underneath one of the podcasts. And you will get 4 tickets if you're the winner to the Dodgers and the White Sox on July 2nd. All right. You know what I want to talk about today? You know, normally we stick to sports here. We have a lot of fun in other areas as well, which is why we call it Unleashed. And which is why this was always my dream when I get into sports talk radio, to kind of branch out and talk about whatever the heck I want to talk about, not only sports. And this situation with Donald Trump and Elon Musk is really bothering me. Now, first of all, I thought they did an absolutely fantastic job working together during the campaign, during the primaries, and then on election night when Donald Trump was once again elected president of the United States. And could he have done it without Elon Musk? Well, I'm not so sure he could have. Elon spent $275 million in donations to the Trump campaign. And also, how about the final month of the campaign? He lived in Pennsylvania. He was there for a month, holding rallies every day, rallying support for Trump because, with Pennsylvania, people thought that could be the state that makes it or breaks it for Trump. Now, I don't think any of us thought that Trump would sweep the battleground states, which he did, and win in such a landslide. But Pennsylvania was huge, and Elon Musk delivered Pennsylvania for Donald Trump. So what I'm hoping here is there can be some kind of reconciliation between the two of them. And one of the reasons is one of the great promises Elon Musk made to Trump in the campaign and to MAGA was that he was going to personally finance the campaigns of primary candidates going up against rhinos with the House elections coming up next year in 2026. Because if the Democrats take control of the House in 26, well, if you're MAGA, if you're on the conservative side of things, you lose the country forever. Because the next day, the impeachment proceedings will start. Hakeem Jeffries will start impeachment proceedings the next day if they take the House in 26. So that's what, if you're on the MAGA side, if you're on the Trump side, you got to vote like it's a presidential election. Because if Hakeem Jeffries is the Speaker of the House, and you know, the Republican side are a bunch of candy-ass wimps. You know, all we hear about on the right, it's from Pam Blondie and Kash, Patel and Dan Bongino and all those do-nothings. Oh, we're going to launch an investigation. They threaten investigations. They write strongly worded letters. That's Jim Jordan's thing. A strongly worded letter. Yeah, that'll show them. And 120 days in so far, not one single arrest of a politician or deep stater, as was promised on day one by Pam Blondie and Tom Homan. Not one single arrest. Blondie, Homan, Bongino, Kash, nothing. You know what the other side does? You know what the Democrats do? They indict, arrest, and imprison. Donald Trump was indicted and arrested. And I tell you what, if Kamala Harris had won the election last November, Donald Trump would have been in jail for the rest of his life. Steve Bannon went to jail for 4 months. Peter Navarro went to jail for 4 months. Look at the J6ers. Some of them are still in there 3 and 4 years later. When the Democrats threaten to imprison and indict, they do it. So that's, if you MAGAs out there, if you lose the House in November of 26, look out. Look, Donald Trump will probably wind up in jail. Maybe they'll real file charges against Steve Bannon and Peter Navarro. I guarantee you Elon Musk will probably, maybe that's why Musk is doing a little bit of a switcheroo right now. He's worried about going to jail next year. Maybe that's the reason. But there will be a lot of people on the right and followers of Trump and Trump supporters and MAGAs who will be on their way to prison if the Democrats win the House in November. So that's how important it is. And whether you like Kamala Harris or not, boy, did we dodge a bullet there, huh? Wow. Woo! Can you imagine President Kamala? So anyway, Elon's promised to finance the campaigns of primary challengers to rhinos next year. I thought was fantastic. So he's worth $500 billion. Come on. And the rhinos, and for people who think that the Republicans have control, because the Republicans have the House, the Senate, and the White House, that is incorrect. Because when you combine the rhinos and the never-Trumpers with the Democrats, they've got the MAGAs outnumbered still, which is probably a big reason why nothing's getting done here. So I was excited when Elon said he's going to personally finance the campaigns of people wanting to primary rhinos in the Republican primaries before the House election. Well, I thought that's a good thing. Because when you run a primary campaign, you have very, very little chance of winning. You've got to scrimp and save, and you get hardly any money. And the incumbents have millions and millions of dollars in the war chest. The big donors on the GOP side, almost all of them are never-Trumpers, and almost all of them want him out of office. So it's hard to unseat somebody who's already in office, unless you're a guy with $500 billion like Elon Musk, which is why I was excited that he said he was going to finance their primary campaigns. Now who knows what's going on with the feud between Trump and Elon Musk. These Republicans, they keep telling me, well, we've got control of the White House, Congress, and Senate. No, you don't. No, you don't, because the rhinos and the Democrats combined still have you outnumbered. Well, we have the Supreme Court, 6-3 conservative. No. The Supreme Court is 5-4 liberal at best, probably 6-3 liberal. Because Amy Coney Barrett's gone to the other side. John Roberts has always been, Democrat light. And, Kavanaugh's a Bush crime family Republican. So, yeah, I'd say it's 6-3 liberal right now, the Supreme Court. And one thing I'm sure Elon is frustrated about. He goes to the White House a couple of weeks ago, and he has a meeting with some of the higher-ups, and Scott Bessent, who is the Treasury Secretary. And they seem to have a difference of opinion on how to handle the IRS. Bessent kind of wants to keep them around, maybe streamline the process a little bit more, not fire everybody, keep people in their jobs, and he's more about streamlining the IRS. Elon wanted to get in there and fire everybody, which I would favor. I think Donald Trump said during the campaign that he wanted to abolish the IRS, which I think is the way to go. Every time I hear him saying no tax on tips, okay, that's fine. No tax on Social Security, okay, that's fine. No tax on overtime, okay, that's fine. But it doesn't go far enough. The IRS should be completely abolished. There should be no internal revenue. Just like a lot of states have gotten rid of their state income tax, the federal income tax should be abolished. Can you imagine how much better life would be if we took home 100% of our paychecks every 2 weeks? Oh my goodness, that's the way it goes. So Elon's more on that side of the ball. Scott Bessent's more on the side of streamlining and a more conservative approach and not wanting to fire everybody. So they get into a big argument, evidently. Bessent calls him a fraud and says, your $1 trillion in Doge cuts, where are they, you fraud? And according to the article I'm reading here, Elon charged him like a rugby player, which he used to be, dug his shoulder into his chest, and he wound up with a black eye. I don't know. Did they get into a fight and Scott Bessent won? Who knows? You know what's really funny? There's a Twitter site and there's a website called Gays for Trump. Like I'm assuming conservatives and gays who are MAGA. After that, they put out a headline, world's richest man beaten up by a gay banker. Scott Bessent. Now that's funny. And then Gays for Trump also put out another headline and said, best Pride Month ever. Like one of their own kicked Elon Musk's ass. So it is, you talk about a train wreck right now. And this is like a couple of 13-year-old junior high school girls getting into a Twitter spat. That's what Trump and Elon remind me of right now. See, Donald and Elon, this isn't the way men handle things. See, in my experience, and I've gone through this a couple of times, a man can get into a fist fight with another man. Even a friend, I've been in like knockdown, drag out, bloody fist fights with really good friends of mine over the years. Over silly things, of course, mostly involving alcohol. Or somebody you run into at a bar, some trouble happens and you wind up getting into a fight. I got into about a 10-minute brawl one time with a guy I'd never met in my life at a bar out on the Sunset Strip years ago. 10 minutes later, we're hugging each other and buying each other beers and laughing about it. You know, wiping the blood off our nose with towels and straightening our teeth back out. See, that's the way men are supposed to handle things. That's the way men do it. Now, in my experience, women handle these things a lot differently. Now, you don't write in and say, Dave Smith, you're a sexist. I'm just going by my experience. In my experience, boy, women just can't let it go. I've had girlfriends over the years, and for 30 years, they haven't spoken to their best friend or some other friends over a comment about their weight, over a comment about their new hairstyle, over a comment about an ugly outfit they bought. Women just can't ever let it go. You know what she did to me 30 years ago. I'll never speak to her again. That's a big difference. Women, at least in my experience, can't let these things go. They hold on to it forever, petty and jealous and catty. Are women smarter than us? Yes. Are they much smarter than us? Yes. Are they more mature than us? In most cases, yes. But when it comes to this stuff, we can let it go. I guess it comes more to the primal feature of being men, the caveman stuff. I can be slugging it out with another guy, like a wild fist fight, rolling on the ground, blood everywhere, and 10 minutes later, we're buying each other beer. See, that's the way men should handle these things. That's the way Donald Trump and Elon Musk should be handling this. You're men. You work beautifully together. You won the election in November, and I don't know if Trump could have done it without Elon. This isn't the way men behave. See, get into a room together, close the door, talk it out, and squash it. That's what men do. Hey, listen, okay. You disagree with me on the big, beautiful bill, Elon Musk. You think it spends too much, and you don't like the fact that it raises the debt ceiling by $5 trillion over the next 10 years. I get it. You don't agree with it. I disagree with you on that. I like the big, beautiful bill that I came up with. But it's no reason to part ways. We work beautifully together. Okay, let's get in there and let's make some tweaks. See, that's what a lot of Republicans want to do right now. I know Marjorie Taylor Greene and Ron Johnson and Rand Paul, and there's other Republicans as well. They don't want to support this big, beautiful bill unless there's tweaks. Now, if you tweak it a little bit, maybe Marjorie Taylor Greene said, if you take away raising the debt ceiling by $5 trillion over the next 10 years, I'll vote for it. And see, here's one that really bothers me. AI, artificial intelligence, which is it's exciting, it's fast growing, it's probably the future. But also in this big, beautiful bill, for the next 10 years, nobody can interfere with AI, with the government. They're free to do whatever they want, which is scary to me, the way this is processing. So I would say, yes, absolutely. Take that out, where you can't challenge anything AI over the next 10 years, and don't raise the debt ceiling by $5 trillion. If you do that, I think the big, beautiful bill is something everybody can agree on. This is what Trump and Elon need to do, working together with some of the Republicans. Yeah, boy, how about, now, Adam Schiff. Now, for those of us who live in California, I don't know if there's a bigger liar, a bigger propagandist, and a bigger scumbag lowlife in politics than Adam Schiff. And we've got to deal with him out here. He won the Senate race against Steve Garvey. And he came out the other day and he said, hey, you know something? I never thought I'd say this, but I agree with Elon Musk on the big, beautiful bill. He's correct. It spends too much money. And then Elon came back, and this is something I liked a lot. He said, well, the fact that Adam Schiff agrees with me on this makes me think I might need to rechange my position. Yes, Elon, yes. If he's agreeing with you, you got trouble. And by the way, Adam Schiff has to be legally insane, doesn't he? He's got those eyes bugging all the way out of his head, kind of like Tim Walz that way. Eyes bugging out of his head, little tiny pencil neck, and a giant head. I have no idea how that neck supports his head. And the eyes, he's got crazy eyes, and they bug out of his head. He's scary crazy. And again, how does that little tiny neck support his head? You know what it looks like? Freddie Blassie, one of my favorite wrestlers back in the day, used to call other guys pencil neck geeks, which was a great term. And I remember one time he was talking about a wrestler, and the announcer said, why don't you like him, Freddie Blassie? And he said, because he's got a neck like a stack of dimes. That's Adam Schiff. And another kind of cryptic tweet that Elon put out yesterday, quote, the most entertaining outcome is the most likely. Well, does that mean he's going to be back to being bros again with Donald Trump, which I hope is the case, because I definitely think they need each other. And if you're MAGA, do you want that $500 billion on the other side working for them? No, this needs to be squashed and this needs to be fixed. And men can do this. Don't listen to your advisors, Donald Trump. Call Elon, invite him to the White House, get into a room, shut the door, and fix this. That's the way men do it. Like when we get into fights and then we're buddies 10 minutes later. Now, I was very helpful over the past weekend. UFC 316 was happening in Newark, New Jersey, at the Prudential Center. And as always, Donald Trump announced that he was going to go there and be sitting ringside with Dana White and who knows, probably Kid Rock and all the rest of the celebrities he sits with. And he's usually next to Elon Musk. And the word was Musk was going to be there as well. So I said to myself, well, this is fantastic stuff. Trump and Elon are going to be sitting next to each other. And Dana White, come on, you can squash this thing. You can get them together. You have a lot of influence. And how about Kid Rock? Kid Rock got Bill Maher and Donald Trump in the same room having dinner together. He arranged that. And now they seem to be friends. So Kid Rock and Dana White, I thought for sure they could get Elon or Donald Trump together. But to my disappointment, Elon didn't show up to the fights last night. And by the way, congratulations to Kayla Harrison, who is the new women's bantamweight champion. She's been a guest on my show in the past. Very, very nice. Like her a lot. And as a huge fan of Impractical Jokers, one of the greatest episodes ever. Remember that? They sent Murray with his ugly wig like to this cocktail party at a beautiful mansion, and they're out in the back by the pool and having hors d'oeuvres and champagne. And they said, look to your right. And it was Kayla Harrison, two-time Olympic gold medalist in judo, standing over there. And they said, Murray, you have to attack her. So he ran over there and tried to wrestle her. She knocked him down a couple of times. She picked him up and body slammed him into a table and broke it. And then she carried him over her head and threw him into the pool. And everybody applauded. She beat the hell out of James Murray, which is one of the greatest episodes ever. Then I had her on the show. She's love her. Really a nice person. So congratulations that she just won the UFC championship. And by the way, Amanda Nunes, the GOAT, is coming out of retirement to challenge her now. Now that is going to be a blockbuster. Now, the UFC women's division hasn't been exciting since Ronda Rousey was around. So now, I tell you what, Kayla Harrison and Amanda Nunes is going to be an absolute pay-per-view blockbuster. Can't wait for that one. Bringing back the excitement in the women's division in UFC. But anyway, the UFC show over last weekend. Elon wasn't there, which was a disappointment to me. So now what happens in the future? Can they fix this? Now, there's been some pretty ugly things said. Donald Trump said he might try to deport Elon Musk, who, by the way, is an American citizen. I don't think Trump can do this. And then Elon put out a tweet that said, you know why the Epstein files haven't been released yet? It's because Donald Trump is on them. Now, that's a pretty serious charge. And now, I think that's just Elon tweaking him. I don't think that can possibly be true. Because if Donald Trump were in the Epstein files, I mean, this would have been released years ago by the left, by the Democrats. They would have never been able to keep a lid on that. So I don't believe it. But these are some pretty serious accusations. But can you come back from that? Well, of course you can. See, again, this is what men do. Remember when Donald Trump ran for president in 2016, the first time around? There was a politician from Ohio by the name of J.D. Vance. You know what he called Trump? Another Hitler. No, I think I'd rather have someone say I was on the Epstein list than compare me to Adolf Hitler, who was responsible for 6 million, the most evil man who ever lived. But what happened? They squashed it, and J.D. Vance is now the vice president of the United States. So Trump forgave him for calling him Hitler, and he called him all kinds of foul names before he called him another Hitler. And yet, there he is as the vice president, and he will most likely be the Republican nominee in 2028. So they got past it. How about Marco Rubio? Remember how much Trump used to ridicule him? Little Marco. Ridiculed him every chance he could get. And yet here he is now as the Secretary of State, one of Trump's most trusted advisors. They're good buddies now. They're on the same page. How about Pam Bondi? Pam Bondi is a 20-year loyalist and insider with the Bush crime family in Florida. Her loyalties lie with the Bush crime family and Karl Rove, in my opinion, more than they do to anybody else, and to John Roberts, who's a business partner of the Bush crime family. She endorsed in 2016, she endorsed Jeb Bush for president when she was the attorney general of Florida at a rally. And she called Trump a con man, which I think is what she really believes. But she called him a con man. Trump got over it. She's now the attorney general of the United States. See, this is what men do. You squash these things and you do what's best for the country. And I'm hoping this can happen with Elon Musk. Now the question is, if Elon doesn't come back, will the left accept him? Because, he was a leftist hero just 2 years ago. He was the darling of the left. Oh, my God, he's coming out with Teslas and EVs. He's against gas-powered vehicles. This guy's miraculous for the environment. He loves the environment. He's one of us. And Gavin Newsom passed a law that said we have to have all electric cars by 2030. Well, Elon was beloved until he said, I endorse Donald Trump. Then, of course, he was the great Satan and the next Hitler when that happened. Will they accept him back? Well, I think $500 billion says yes. Yes, they would. You know what else is interesting? What's the future of J.D. Vance, Marco Rubio, etc.? Because just a few years ago, remember how much the MAGAs and the Trumpsters loved Mike Pence? Well, he was going to be the next nominee for president of the United States. After Trump was reelected in 2020, Pence was going to be the nominee in 24. That was the plan. And Pence is an idiot, by the way. Had Pence stayed loyal to Donald Trump and stood by him, he would still be the vice president right now and probably still be the front runner for the nomination in 2028. Things can change and things can change. I know the MAGAs, they love J.D. Vance and they love Marco Rubio right now. But just remember, J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio were career rhinos, never Trumpers, establishment GOP types, until they cozied up to Donald Trump. And now look where they are now. J.D. VP, Marco Rubio, Secretary of State. What do you think happens to those two? Once Trump's term runs out here in 28, and a new nominee has to run for president, whether it be J.D. Vance or Rubio or Tulsi Gabbard or whomever it is, will J.D. and Rubio still be MAGA, still be Trumpsters, still be Trump supporters when they're running on their own without Trump around? That's the question. I'm not so sure. Look what happened to Mike Pence. Look into the background of J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio. They're never Trump or globalist rhinos their entire careers until just about a year ago. By the way, did you see it? I like Dan Bongino. He's been on my show as well years ago. And he had a very successful radio talk show. He replaced Rush Limbaugh after Rush passed away. And Bongino and Kash Patel were on Fox News a couple of weekends ago. And they were asked about the Jeffrey Epstein suicide. And did that look like a hostage video to you or what? It did to me. And boy, when Dan Bongino was on the radio before he became the assistant FBI director, he was screaming about the Secret Service. It's corrupt. There's collusion. The Donald Trump assassination attempt. We're not going to get to the real story there. We'll get to the real story about the shooter. He had help. He had overseas connections. It's a conspiracy. And he thought that Jeffrey Epstein was murdered in jail too, which I think anybody with a working brain knows that Epstein was whacked. He did not commit suicide. And when I see Dan Bongino on there saying, well, I've seen the files, there's no doubt he committed suicide, Jeffrey Epstein. Now, see, that's parsing his words. When he says, well, I've seen the files, that's kind of his way of slipping off the hook, because I think we all know that the files are compromised and the files are a lie and the files have been tampered with. He didn't say, well, he committed suicide. That's it. He said, he's committed suicide. I've seen the files. And Kash Patel said the same thing. Absolutely, that was a suicide. They're both lying. Of course it wasn't a suicide. Miraculously, the cameras quit working that night when Epstein was in his cell. The guards who were supposed to check on Epstein every 20 minutes were down the hall taking a nap. He was not supposed to have a cellmate, and he was given a cellmate because he tried to commit suicide a month or two before. So then they put him in there by himself. But all of a sudden, his cellmate went back into the cell with him, which was against prison policy. So there was a cellmate that he wasn't supposed to have. The guards were asleep and the cameras didn't work. Yeah. And the foremost pathologist in the world, Dr. Michael Baden, I think we all know who he is. Now, he didn't see the body, but he looked at the autopsy report and he saw that there were 3 broken bones around the hyoid, which is behind the Adam's apple. And he said, that, of course, makes it a murder. He said, I've been doing this for 50 years, and I've never once seen 3 broken bones like that around the hyoid. That was a suicide. Impossible. And did you see the marks on Epstein's neck? The red rash and the marks. Wow, man, he hung himself. That was a violent death. Except, you know what the bed sheets are made out of in that Manhattan prison? They're made out of paper. Specifically to stop people from hanging themselves and committing suicide. They tear easily. They're made out of paper. There's no way his body weight could have hung from those paper sheets. They would have snapped right away and torn. And they certainly would have given him rope burns around his neck. So it's just so ridiculous for anyone to think that he committed suicide. But yet, there's Bongino and Kash Patel on television lying on Fox News, saying he committed suicide. What happens to people when they get to Washington, D.C.? You know, I always liked Bongino. I liked his show. Of course, he came on my show, as I said earlier. I like Kash Patel. What happens to people when they get to Washington, D.C.? Were they threatened? Were their lives threatened? Were their families' lives threatened? And what, did they look coached? Did they look rehearsed? Did they look scared? It looked like a hostage video when they did that interview. Something happens to people when they get to Washington, D.C. All right. So what happens now as we close out the show here? What happens now with Elon Musk and Donald Trump? Well, as of this taping, I'm still holding out hope against hope that they can behave like men and not 13-year-old girls and squash this. Come on, Trump. J.D. Vance called you another Hitler. You let that go, and he's now the vice president. Marco Rubio said horrible things about you. Marco Rubio was a never-Trumper. Marco Rubio was an open borders globalist his entire career. Now he's your Secretary of State. You let that go. Pam Bondi endorsed Jeb Bush for president in 2016 and said, we can't have that con man, Donald Trump. And she's now your attorney general. So if you can forgive that, you can't get into a room with Elon Musk and squash this thing? Of course you can. That's what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping for in the next week or so, we hear that they had a meeting, they're on the same page again, and Trump has agreed to compromise a little bit on the big, beautiful bill, which he should do, because right now the bill stinks. I'm against it now as well. You got to get rid of that $5 trillion debt ceiling increase, and you've got to get rid of that provision that says you can't do anything or interfere with anything the government does with AI over the next 10 years. That's scary. That cannot be allowed. You get rid of those two things, then maybe I'm on board. But to just, for Elon to say he's on the Epstein list, and for Trump to say I'm going to deport him, and for Trump not to take a meeting with him, no, no, and no. This is what you do if you're a man. You get together, you shake hands, you squash it, you do what's best for the relationship or best for the country or best for whatever, and you fix it. That's what men do. Dave Smith Unleashed, brought to you by MTS Transportation, 800-640-6873 for reliable, on-time delivery, compliance you can count on, round-the-clock support, superior communication, experienced logistics partners, and mention the Dave Smith Unleashed podcast and get 20% off on your next shipment. And don't forget, if you're a subscriber on YouTube, and by the way, if you want to subscribe to YouTube, go to youtube.com/@the Dave Smith Unleashed podcast. Make sure you subscribe. If you're a subscriber, if you like the show, and if you comment in the box underneath the YouTube video, you're eligible to win 4 tickets to the Dodgers-White Sox game on July 2nd. We'll be picking a winner in the next week or two. Okay, so everybody, thanks for listening. Follow me on Twitter @DaveSportsCon. I'm always talking about what the next subject is going to be and what the next Dave Smith Unleashed is going to be. And we'll talk to you then right here on Dave Smith Unleashed.